All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a medical mystery, one that happens when your body's internal chemistry gets thrown way out of whack.
So that sounds like a pretty weird riddle, right? Well, the answer is they can all trigger a condition called metabolic alkalosis. And I know, that's a mouthful. So let's break down what it actually is.
Okay, to get our heads around this, just picture your body's blood pH like a super precise recipe. I mean, it has to be kept in this perfect, slightly alkaline balance for everything to work the way it's supposed to.
So, metabolic alkalosis? That's what happens when that recipe gets a huge overdose of one specific ingredient, an alkaline one called bicarbonate. It just throws the whole system completely out of whack, making your blood way too alkaline.
Now, a mild case, you might not even notice it, but a severe imbalance? That's no joke. It can really mess with your brain and your muscles. We're talking about things like headaches, feeling super tired, all the way to muscle twitching and even seizures. So yeah, pretty serious stuff.
So you have to be asking, what in the world could cause such a major imbalance in our body's basic chemistry? Well, it turns out the usual suspects, they tend to fall into just a few key groups. Okay, so the two biggest culprits by far are diuretic use, you might know them as water pills, and losing a ton of stomach acid, from really severe vomiting. And that licorice thing from our riddle? Yep, that's real. Eating a lot of actual licorice can do it because there's a compound in there that basically tricks your body by acting like a hormone, and it makes you get rid of too much acid.
Okay, so with all these different potential causes, how do doctors figure out which one is the real problem? Like any good detective, they need a key clue to crack the case. And this is where it gets really interesting. It turns out, clinicians figured out that almost every single case of metabolic alkalosis falls into one of two main categories. And knowing which one it is completely changes the game. So this is the big fork in the road for the diagnosis. On one path, you've got chloride-responsive alkalosis. This is the most common one, and it's all about the body losing chloride. On the other path, you've got chloride-unresponsive. Here the problem is usually something totally different, like an excess of certain hormones. So the big question for the doctor becomes, is the body just thirsty for chloride, or is there a deeper hormonal issue causing all the trouble?
All right, so let's follow the investigation and see exactly how doctors use this clue to figure things out. So after they've talked to the patient and gotten their history, the key piece of evidence comes from a test that's actually pretty simple. They just measure the amount of chloride in the patient's urine. And get this, it all comes down to one number, 20 milliequivalents per liter. The whole investigation hinges on whether the urine chloride level is above or below that magic number. It's amazing, right? This one little test basically gives them the key to the whole mystery. If that number is low, below 20, it tells them the body is losing chloride from somewhere else, probably the stomach, and the kidneys are working overtime trying to hold on to every last bit they can. But if that number is high, well, that points the finger in a totally different direction, usually towards those hormonal issues. Why? Because it means the kidneys aren't even trying to save chloride, which signals a completely different problem is going on.
So once they know which type it is, responsive or unresponsive, the path to treatment becomes super clear. It's all about fixing the exact problem they uncovered.
And you can see here just how perfectly the solution lines up with the clue. For those really common chloride-responsive cases, the fix is usually just giving saline solution through an IV. It replaces the lost chloride and the lost fluid. Simple as that. But for those other unresponsive cases, saline just isn't going to cut it. You have to go after the root cause, like that hormonal issue, and you often have to give the patient potassium too. So the big takeaway here is that treatment isn't just about chasing a number on a lab report trying to fix the pH. Just like this quote from the MSD manual says, it's about treating the underlying conditions. And those fancy words hypovolemia and hypokalemia, that just means fixing the low fluid levels and the low potassium levels. You got to fix the source of the problem. So by playing detective, following the clues from the patient's story all the way to that one critical urine test, doctors can pinpoint the real culprit, apply the right cure, and get that delicate chemical recipe inside the body back into perfect balance. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. This whole case just goes to show how deeply interconnected our body's systems are. Something as simple as losing fluid or even what you eat can have these massive cascading effects. And it really makes you wonder, right? What other seemingly small, simple inputs can cause such a major system failure inside us?